Welcome to our CFP exam prep discussion focusing on standard deviation, a crucial concept you'll encounter in portfolio management questions. Today, we're diving deep into how standard deviation measures total risk and what it means for your investment decisions. Standard deviation tells us how much an investment's returns deviate from its average return over time. Think of it as measuring how bumpy your investment ride will be. The higher the standard deviation, the more volatile or risky the investment. Let's break this down with a practical example. Consider two investments. Investment A has an average return of 8% with a standard deviation of 5%. Investment B also has an average return of 8%, but with a standard deviation of 15%. While both investments offer the same expected return, investment B will give you a much wilder ride. With investment A, you can expect returns to typically fall between 3% and 13%, while investment B's returns might swing from negative 7% to positive 23%. Understanding the mathematical components is essential for the exam. Standard deviation is calculated by taking the square root of variance. The variance is determined by finding the difference between each data point and the mean, squaring these differences, and then taking their average. The squaring process makes all differences positive and gives more weight to larger deviations. Many test takers make the mistake of confusing standard deviation with other risk measures. Remember, standard deviation measures total risk, including both systematic and unsystematic risk. This is different from beta, which only measures systematic risk relative to the market. The exam often tries to trip candidates up by asking questions that require distinguishing between these two concepts. Another common exam pitfall involves interpreting standard deviation in real-world contexts. When you see a standard deviation of 20%, this means approximately 68% of returns will fall within plus or minus one standard deviation of the mean. About 95% of returns will fall within two standard deviations, and 99.7% within three standard deviations. The exam might present scenarios where you need to apply these probability ranges. Here's a practical application you might encounter on the exam. If a mutual fund has an average return of 10% and a standard deviation of 12%, you should be able to quickly determine that about 2/3 of the time, returns will fall between negative 2% and positive 22%. This type of calculation frequently appears in exam questions. One subtle point that often confuses candidates is that standard deviation assumes returns are normally distributed. In reality, investment returns often have skewed distributions, but the exam typically works with the normal distribution assumption. Don't get caught up in this theoretical limitation during the exam. For portfolio management questions, remember that standard deviation can be reduced through diversification, but only the unsystematic portion of risk can be diversified away. The exam might present questions about why a portfolio's standard deviation isn't zero even after extensive diversification. When studying for the exam, focus on understanding how standard deviation relates to other risk measures and how it's used in portfolio construction. Practice calculating standard deviation ranges and interpreting what they mean for different investment scenarios. Most importantly, remember that standard deviation is a backward-looking measure, and past volatility doesn't guarantee future volatility. This perspective often appears in exam questions, testing your deeper understanding of risk measurement limitations.